Alright, and hello everybody, I'm the Super27 and welcome to another Dokkan Battle video. Before we get started, please go down below and make sure that you are subscribed. I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers, so if you could help me reach that goal, that would be fantastic of you guys. So, a little bit of a different setup here. It's been a long time since I have done a custom Dokkan character thing. I alluded to doing this exact character back in June, I believe it was. It was right around when Omega Shenron came out, and Omega Shenron didn't have a lot of support. So I wanted to make a character that could be a great help for that Omega Shenron because it kind of sucked. Primarily because GT bosses suck. So it's been a long time coming. I'm using my stream setup, so I have a microphone here in front of me instead of talking just into the bottom of my phone. So I hope that there's a noticeable increase in audio quality, and once I can figure out how to get my capture device to work, this will be the new norm. But hopefully I sound cool. If anybody knows how to use a phone capture device, I would love any advice I can get. Again, I'm very much a boomer. When it comes to technology, that is, of course. But this character is a combination of FRIEZA and Cell from the fight with Kid Goku and HFIL, or if you're a double elitist, or just Hell. So the character name, and you might be wondering, it's like a combo character, but you only see FRIEZA here. We'll get to it. If you look to the right, you may see it, but try not to spoil it. Don't look over here. You don't want to spoil. So we have the character name Revenge Never Dies FRIEZA Final Form GT. He will be an AGL, TUR, whose leader skill is Resurrected Warriors, Sworn Enemies, and GT Bosses category allies get 3 key and 70% the stats, plus an additional 30% attack and defense to characters who all also belong to Revenge, Full Power, and Inhuman Deed, and this is what that team will look like. Alright, so you can see here we have Resurrected Warriors, GT Bosses, Sworn Enemies, Revenge, Full Power, and Diabolical Villains, or Inhuman Deeds. So, going down the list here, we hit Search. This is, as of right now, every character in the game that would be under a 200% leader skill. So, of course, Omega, it's kind of the main reason I designed this character, was to be an Omega buff. Now, because he fits with Sworn Enemies, you can obviously run him with Cells, you can run him with Friezas, you can run Golden Frieza on your team. This guy with an easy A, I would love to see how he'll perform. I think he will be very, very good. Because people were running this kid with Kid Goku pre-easy A, so I want to see how well this lad can do. Of course, you have some of your shitty GT units. I mean, by that I mean most of them. Of course, you have Super 17. I don't know why Hearts is on here. I don't know what characters he's fitting with, but you just have a lot of mediocre characters, which sucks, because Sworn Enemies has like every Frieza and every Cell in the game, pretty much, and they're all incredibly underpowered, which is a shame. Of course, you know, you have your Tech Ultimate Gohans as well. You have some good support units like Garlic Jr., even though you really can't run him. But this is just kind of what you would be expecting. Pretty weak overall, but I like giving characters 3 and 3 so they fit on 6. So not only could they cover a lot of bases, because if you noticed, most of the characters I made have been helping weaker categories, like Resurrected Warriors sucks, GT Bosses sucks, Sworn Enemies suck. But with Revenge, you have Resurrected Warriors, Revenge, you have Tech Ultimate Gohan. Full Power GT Bosses, that's where you get Omega Shenron and everybody. And then Diabolical Villains plus Resurrected Warriors or Sworn Enemies is how you get most of the Golden Friezas and the Coolers, which I think is a big buff to this team. This character is primarily meant for GT bosses, so a lot of these characters wouldn't help them out too much. But you'll see once we get further into the kit that they would be a great help to any of the teams and categories that they fit on. And I'm also doing something a little bit different on this time. So the reason this was so delayed is because I could not find good animations for what I wanted to do. So I'm just not going to be doing custom animations. I'm not going to find clips or anything. That way I can maybe do these videos a bit more regularly. So I apologize, but it'll save me time in editing, it'll make there be less likely of a chance I'll get a copyright strike, stuff like that. So I think going forward, that is ultimately what I'll do with the rest of this series. But we have the Death Saucer here. I know I put 12 key. I originally intended for this character to be an LR, but I decided just to make them a TUR at the last second. So Death Saucer, this is pretty much just like when he launches the 2 Kienzons at Goku, but he ends up riding one of them, but in this incarnation it would actually hit. So, it is a Ki Blast, will greatly raise attack for 1 turn, which is a 50% attack rate, stuns the enemy for 1 turn, and lowers attack and defense. Now, a lot of this character got inspiration from the free-to-play GT Frieza and Cell, and you'll see that a lot more once we get into their passives. So his passive skill is a grudge developed over years. 3 key, 100% attack, and 150% of defense at the start of turn. He gets an additional 80% attack and defense when he performs a super attack. He reduced damage received by 30% in slot 1 or 2. All allies get 50% defense for 1 turn after this character receives a hit. Great chance to launch an additional super. He exchanges into Cell when conditions are met, and he exchanges into Cell from the 3rd turn from the start of battle. Think Easy A, AGL, TUR, Zamasu. So if you get this guy in slot 7, you'll never actually use FRIEZA. So you're probably looking at this kit, and you're wondering, wow, he seems pretty underpowered. 30% damage reduction really isn't enough. He has to be in slot 1 or 2, so that loses a lot of his floatability. I made this guy when the hardest event in the game was the Shadow Dragon event, Omega Shenron, which is yet to be in Global still. That was kind of what I intended him, because that is a long fight. So this guy builds up. You'll see in a second once we get to Cell how he progressively gets better and better and better. So I figured to balance him, having him be a little bit weak at the start of turn would be fine. And he may be weak for, like, you know, the Divine Wrath Immortal Will event. But in Super Battle Road, ESPR, he has guaranteed stuns, he's lowering, or he's debuffing the enemy, he has damage reduction, he's giving himself support. I mean, he does have to get hit first, but you have to have him in slot 1 or 2 anyway. He'll be a fine slot 2 option. Again, power creep happened before I developed this character, pretty much. Because again, I made this, it was during the 8-year anniversary on Global, and I had no idea how much harder the game was going to get. It's insane. So, you know, he pretty much in base form, he's going to be power crept. But his Link skills, he has GT, which is 2 key, 10% attack and defense. Big Bad Bosses, which is 25 to stats. Strongest Clan in space, all enemies lose 10% defense, and he gets 2 key. Universe is most malevolent, he gets a 20% attack boost. Shocking Speed, which is 2 key and 5% defense. Nightmare, which is 15% attack. And Shattering the Limit, which is 2 key and 5% attack and defense. He has a pretty decent Link set. As you can see here, he has 2 kind of odd links, being Strongest Clan in Space and Universe is Most Malevolent, while, you know, GT, Nightmare, Shocking Speed, and Shattering the Limit are all specifically, as far as I'm aware, only for GT Final Form Friezas. So, yes, you could theoretically run him with other Friezas, other coolers, stuff like that, but you're going to be missing out on a lot of these links. Even though these links, other than GT, you just link him with a different Frieza, you'll still get BBB, Strongest Clan in Space, Universe is Most Malevolent, and maybe Shocking Speed and Shattering the Limit, but I'm pretty sure that's exclusive, like I said, to the GT incarnation of this character. Now for his categories, he has Resurrected Warriors, Sworn Enemy, GT Bosses, Revenge, Inhuman Deeds, Target Goku, Full Power, Join Forces, Transformation Boost, Exploding Range, and Powerful Comeback. So, the justification for all these characters. Resurrected Warriors, because of Juro and Mew. I thought it made sense seeing as, you know, they kind of combined. I know I gave them a halo, even though they're technically alive, because no one is dead, because the gate between Otherworld and our world is split. But I figured I would still just put a little halo over all the characters just to show. Sworn Enemies, because it is a Frieza and Cell unit. GT Bosses, because they're all in GT Bosses. Revenge, they wanted Revenge on Goku. Inhuman Deeds, they're 2 of the most diabolical villains. I mean, Cell's really not like diabolical, but you get the idea. Target Goku, they wanted to kill Goku. Full Power, mostly because, so that way they could link with the AGL Final Form Frieza on Namek, and the LR EZA Int Cell that came out at the start of this year. Join Forces, we're going to get to that. Transformation Boost, pretty obvious. Exploding Rage, because the other ones I believe are as well. Powerful Comeback, we will get to why they're on Powerful Comeback. So, again, if you have him on turn 1 or 2, you'll have him in Frieza's form, but if you get him in slot 7, he'll instantly transform into Cell. So his new character name is Perfection Strike. Cell Perfect Form GT. He's still an AGL-TUR, obviously. His attack will be the Super Death Beam, which is a Ki Blast. Massively raise defense for 1 turn, seals the enemy for 2 turns, and lowers attack and defense. This, again, is coming from the free-to-play TUR. I think it's actually free-to-play SSR. I don't think it actually has an Awakening. The massively raised defense, 100%, is great. Really, you're not going to get any versatility out of this, but I wanted it to be consistent, so I still just threw that on. You can still debuff, though, so for like the Divine Wrath Immortal Will Vegito Blue event, you could get some mileage out of using this guy. His new passive skill will be Step Aside Frieza, it's not my turn. Just imagine like an animation of him throwing his arm and pushing Frieza aside so he can kind of get thrust into things. So he gets 3 key, 150% attack, and 100% defense at the start of turn, just flip-flop what they gave. He recovers 20% HP at the start of turn. All allies get 50% attack when HP is 88% or more. This can proc mid-turn, so if you heal enough with orbs to get above 88%, he'll be giving a 50% attack boost to everybody on the rotation, which is a very massive buff. And depending on your event, will either be really easy to get or really hard to get. Again, I made this one the hardest event in the game, was Omega, where he starts off pretty hard with that tech phase, but you can kind of work through it. Now Zamasu, you know, turn 1, he's just launching an AoE that basically kills your whole team. So you'll be at very low health. So you'll probably never reliably get this in today's meta, but again, I designed this character a long time ago. He gets an additional 100% attack and defense when he performs a super attack. He has a high chance to guard and a high chance to dodge all enemies' attacks, including super attacks, when in slot 1 or 2. So instead of having the 30% damage reduction, he has two 50% chances of having very powerful defensive options. So guard, even though guard is kind of overrated, again, in today's meta, because these characters just hit so hard, you need guard and damage reduction or something. The fact that he just has guard is not enough. It would have been enough against Omega, because, you know, he's an AGLTUR, so being able to resist that tech phase would be good. And the high chance to dodge is always good. When he's in slot 1 or 2. You might be wondering, why am I doing the whole slot 1 and 2 thing? You'll see here in just a second. There's a reason why you want to keep him on rotation. He recovers 7% HP when his guard is active, so that includes if you dodge. And I want this to be, like, per hit. So if your guard is active and you take, like, 9% of your total health, Cell would heal up 7% of that. So you would only actually take 2 damage. That's the way I want this to be worded. So I want him to be a very powerful defensive unit. I didn't really know how to word that. Recover 7% HP when guard is activated per hit, essentially, is what this is. So if he takes 10%, he would heal 7, so in actuality, that attack only did 3% to your total health bar. I wanted this guy to be a very solid defensive unit. So even if he dodges and his guard is active, that would still proc. That's why I didn't put the, like, per hit, because, again, I didn't really know how to do it. I kind of fudge the rules a lot with my custom Dokkan characters. I kind of play it hot and loose with the rules. He recovers 7% HP at the end of turn. That's just baseline. He has a great chance to perform a crit, 70% chance. And then he teams up with FRIEZA when conditions are met. Teams up with FRIEZA upon entering the next attacking turn. So you'll only have one rotation with each. Can I go back? I can. So there's a chance you will never ever actually get to use this guy, but you will have to use Cell at least once. But again, Cell's pretty solid. You know, on Super, that's 100% defense raise for 1 turn. He gets 100% on Super Attack. Gets 100% at the start of the turn. His attack stat will be pretty high. He's a pretty powerful support unit if you're able to get this. Massive amount of HP recovery. Now, granted, if this isn't activated and this isn't activated, this guy will probably be a fraud. Even post-Super, these enemies just hit so hard. Great chance to crit doesn't really matter. I just wanted to give him something to kind of differentiate himself from the FRIEZA form. And his link set stays pretty much the same, except for these 2 additions right here. Ultimate Life Form, which is 2 key, recovers 3% HP, and 10% attack and defense. Actually, quite a solid link. The problem with it is that their cells want to be run with cells. Cells don't want to be run with androids. And most cells that want to be run together have the same name. You know what I mean? But this is Perfect Cell GT, so you can link him with, like, the Fizz LR or the Int LR. And you could actually get this to proc. And same with Gentleman. So, you know, that's another little bit of versatility. You could run him on a Cell team under, like, Transformation Boost, perhaps. And Gentleman is 2 key and then just 10% defense. Pretty solid. And again, all the links other than that stay the same. But after you do your 1 turn with Cell, they then team up to be together. I'm sorry I couldn't find a high-quality photo, but this is the best that I could do. The best Hell has to offer FRIEZA Final Form GT and Cell Perfect Form GT. Their new attack is the 12-key Hell Buster. That's where they both shoot the, like, yellow energy beam and throw Goku into the deepest part of HFIL. Greatly raise attack and defense for 3 turns, which is a 50% to both. Stunts the enemy for 1 turn, seals the enemy for 2 turns. Again, that is just for consistency's sake. You will never, ever get that to activate. Because you're getting this on turn 5 at the earliest, right? Because you get him on your first rotation, turn 5, you're getting him as soon as possible. So his new passive skill is working together for a common goal. They get 6 key, 177 attack and defense at the start of turn, pretty big. They recover 7% HP at the start of turn. They get 122% attack and defense when performing a super attack. That's a lot of stats. They're going to be pretty powerful. They have a great chance to launch an additional that has a great chance of coming a super attack. So this is like the, you know, the Beast Gohan, the LRs, the DBZ Duo, GT Duo. You know, you have that. It's a 70% chance. It's not a guaranteed super, though, but if you do get it, it is a 70% chance. So, you know, you'll have those times where this guy will be a fantastic unit, getting all these 3-turn buffs to stack up on top of each other, or you'll just get normal, and you'll be really sad. So let's see, I've seemed to have lost my place. Here we go. They have a great chance to perform a crit, 70% chance. The reduced damage received by 30%, so it's just Frieza's form, but regardless of what slot they're in. They have a high chance to dodge, including super attacks, and a great chance to guard in slot 1 or 2. So 50% chance to guard, but 50% chance to dodge, but now they have a 70% chance to guard in slot 1 or 2. So you add guard, dodge, and 30% damage reduction. Now 30% damage reduction and guard is pretty good. If you have dodge and guard, that's pretty good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if either one of these proc, this is a phenomenal defensive unit, almost impossible to break through. They all are chance except for the damage reduction, so if you get really unlucky, just 30% damage reduction is not going to be enough, unless you get, like, a ton of these multiple turn buffs to stack on top of each other, which will be pretty rare. Let's see. You recover another 7% HP when receiving an attack while guard is activated. This is kind of similar, but this is just a once per turn. The other one in Cell's form, let's go back to it. This I wanted to be per hit. So if you get hit 10 times, you'll heal 70% collectively while your guard is active. Whereas for this one, I wanted this just to be a once per turn. Because it doesn't really make sense to have that healing ability with Frieza when Frieza has never shown to have a healing factor of his own. All allies get 25% attack and defense. That is just splitting the 50% defensive buff and the 50% offensive buff that these two provided in together. So it's less support, but it's unconditional, and it's both to everybody, so it helps a little bit more. Now, this character loses 300% defense when in slot 3, when HP is 66% or less. So this is the main reason you kind of want to keep these characters on. All their powerful defensive abilities are in slot 1 or in slot 2. And when they're in this form, 300% defense is lost. So you're going to lose this, you're going to lose this, and a little bit of this. So you might be wondering, why the hell would you want to do that? Well, this character has a revive that they can do when they are in slot 3 at any point. Can revive in slot 3. Only once, of course, because, you know, every character, you can only have one revive per team. But if this character is ever in slot 3, that little heart icon will appear. And if you have them in slot 3 when your HP is low, they're going to lose all of their defense. Their defense is basically going to be at 0. And you won't have a chance to dodge. You won't have a chance to guard. You'll still have the, you know, 30% damage reduction. But think about the AGL Future Gohan. The exchange one. Sure, once he goes into his guard, or his revive, he has to be the one to die, but he loses all of his damage reduction, and he only has like 40,000 defense, so one hit will kill him. That is essentially what this will do. When this character revives, or any character, so it has the 23rd World Tournament Goku effect, that way if you want to run double Omega as your leader, you can have Omega die, and you'll still get this buff. They get an additional 122% attack and defense, they get an extra 20% damage reduction, and they have a 20% chance to dodge, including super attacks, and then they recover 66% HP when this character revives. So, what does that mean? So they're getting 177 at the start of turn, 122 on super attack, and another 122 permanently. They now have 50% damage reduction, and they have the 50% chance to dodge here, and if that fails to proc, they have a 20% chance to dodge here, as well as they still have the high chance to guard and everything. This unit is going to be super powerful. So the Frieza form is pretty weak. Cell, you know, he's passable, but if you were able to make it to turn 5, this will be worth the investment. You have the massive, you know, again, at any point you can revive, and this is great. Now, it would suck if you're on, like, turn 4, and you have to make Omega revive, because they haven't entered yet, so this wouldn't proc. So, you know, it has some mind games, you know, being careful when your characters die and what have you. But again, you can have your Omega die, that way Omega will get his buff, and these guys will also get their buff. And for one final time, their link set does change a little bit. They now have Fierce Battle and Brutal Beatdown, which is 20% attack and 15 attack, respectively. Now, as we can see here, they are a TUR, and I would assume they would be a Dokkan Fest. So, seeing that they would be a Dokkan Fest, they of course have to have a side banner unit. And I think I have made the greatest character in Dokkan history. I am more proud of this. No, I'm not. I'm almost as proud of making this as I am making my bio Broly. You're going to see this guy and probably not even know who he is. This is Sagoro. This is from the little episode. I think it was a two-parter episode. It was right after Super Saiyan 3 Kid Goku lost his Super Baby. And, you know, the Revenge Death Ball blew up the Earth or whatever. Or blew up part of the Earth. And Kibito Kai came in, scooped up Kid Goku, but dropped him in a parallel dimension. Well, Sagoro is the ruler of said dimension. It's one of my favorite parts of Dragon Ball GT, because that's where I feel like they really mastered the goofiness. You know, like, it was a little too goofy at first. I have always loved this little, like, game show thing where, like, Goku was super stupid. There's a lot of fun, wacky traps and everything. It was a lot of fun. And Sagoro does not have a card, so this would be a new named character. So, we have a cheating Game Master Sagoro. He would be a physical TUR. His leader skill would be Final Trump card, 3 key, and 130 to stats. Normal side banner unit shit. His 12 key is Bad Luck, which would be an other, which would only cost supreme damage, doesn't raise anything, but it stuns, seals, and greatly lowers enemy attack and defense. Now, for reference, a stun would be for 1 turn, the seal would be for 2 turns, and the debuff would be for 2 turns. I don't know why I wrote that for, like, GT, Frieza, and Cell. So you can see here I differentiated it for all of them. Don't know why I didn't differentiate it for him. Probably because I'd already done so, and I assumed that the pattern could be recognized, but that's the case. Now, Bad Luck, you might be wondering what that is. I would imagine it would just be like the Dokkan sprites going through a bunch of traps, ending with the Spike Pitfall, falling into that and getting, like, impaled or whatever. Not doing a ton of damage, but having just a ton of versatility. This guy will be absolutely great in, like, battlefields, Battle Road, and you'll see here in a second, he's going to be a god as the most defensive unit in the game. Because again, he's a cheating Game Master, and his passive skill is making the rules. Because as he did in the game, he cheated. And when you use this character, you basically get to cheat the game as well. So he gets 1 keyed, 77% attack and defense at the start of turn. Not really too impressive. He turns Tech Key Spheres into Physical Key Spheres. He turns STR Key Spheres into AGL Key Spheres. The reason I did that is for Omega and the new TUR that I made, the Frieza and Cell unit. Then after that, he turns a certain type of Key Sphere, physical excluded, to Rainbow Key Spheres. So why would I have him Rainbow Key Sphere and Double Orb Change? So on the off chance that this character does turn all these AGL Key Spheres into Rainbow Key Spheres, which is very rare, you have a 1 in 4 chance of that happening, you can give this guy more orbs, because this guy, spoiler alert, is going to be a slot 1 unit. But otherwise, you put him in slot 1, you collect all the physical orbs that he makes, you leave the rainbow orbs and the AGL orbs for either Omega or for the GT guys that I just made. So let's continue on. He has a 99% chance to take reduced damage received by 99% in slot 1 with 6 other GT bosses on the team. So if you're running him on GT bosses, so if you're either running him with Omega or the new unit that I made, and you plop him into slot 1, 99% of the time, he will have 99% damage reduction. And just take 0 damage, be a perfect slot 1 unit forever. Making this a must-run on the GT Bosses team. Now, GT Bosses sucks, that's why I gave this guy that. For that reason alone, doing 0 damage, I would run him just for that. Because 100% of the time, most GT bosses will die in slot 1. 99% of the time, this guy will live. He'll only die 1% of the time. That'll instantly put GT bosses up on the top. And with this being Sagoro, let's be real, he's never actually going to get a Dokkan card. He may become like an item, or there may be like a support memory with him or something. You're never going to actually play as Sagoro. So if they do ever make a Sagoro, he needs to be like busted like 20,000 times better than Bulma. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I did. I gave him some weird versatility, but he'll be like a fun RNG unit as if you're playing like a tabletop board game. That's what I wanted to go for. Excuse me. When designing Sagoro. So let's carry on. 70% defense to all extreme class allies when he's in slot 2. So if you... Now, okay. There's another thing I did with this guy. locking events would screw him over, but I wanted to still make him somewhat viable, so I gave him these little things. I kind of like peppered in extra buffs, but obviously you want to always have him in slot 1. But let's say you're running him against the Metal Cooler Core for some reason, he gets locked in slot 2, then he gives 70% defensive support to all extreme class allies, which again you want to be running him with because, you know, GT bosses. But I guess if you ran him with that one physical super class Nova Shenron, I don't know why you ever would, but for just in case you did, he wouldn't get that buff. He has a medium chance to dodge all attacks in slot 2. And then all allies, as exclusive of type, get 50% attack when he's in slot 3, and he has a high chance to dodge all attacks, including super attacks, while he's in slot 3. Now, as you can see here, this guy is going to be an orb muncher. That's why I gave him all of this. So let's see what he can do. He can recover 70% HP with 16 or more key spheres obtained. Now, you may be looking at that and be like, that's ridiculous, that's broken, that's busted. Think about back in 2022, when you could have Majin Vegeta in slot 2, and then Vegeta and Trunks in slot 1. Majin Vegeta orb changes all those ink key spheres, and then Vegeta and Trunks eat up all those ink key spheres. You could go from 0% HP to being fully healed almost. So this is not that broken. The reason that this is so high is because his stats are so low. So collecting same type key spheres isn't going to give you a lot of health, so this is to compensate with that. But you have to get 16 orbs. That's almost the whole field of orbs. Another reason why you want to put him into slot 1, and another reason why he double type key sphere changes, and then he rainbow key sphere changes, to make this part of his passive a little bit more obtainable. Alright, this is inspired purely by Kid Goku. All allies, 7% attack, defense, and chance to dodge instead of damage reduction, all attacks including super attacks, with 20 key spheres obtained. Which again is possible. It's going to be really rare unless you use like Bulma's active, which you can't really run Bulma on the same team with him, but if you know what I mean. Or if you had transforming physical Vegeta, and on that term the entire field is going to be physical, you could theoretically do it then. But that's some really good support. And then I threw this in just to be goofy. He gets 1000% attack with 23 key spheres, and all attacks become super effective against all types once only. So, only one time, if you get every single orb on the field, he'll get 1000 attack, and he'll be super effective against all types. It probably still won't even do that much damage, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. It'll probably be like a very minuscule amount of damage. It'll be like average attack stats, but I find that funny. And this guy's a funny guy, and this guy would just be fun to run. He has all this key sphere changing. He'll have the instant, be a perfect defensive unit. Again, he'll fail you 1% of the time. UI Goku fails you 30% of the time. The Blue Fusions fail you 30% of the time. A 1% chance if you're running him on this dog shit team, I think that works. I truly think it works. Because let's be real, GT bosses is always going to be shitty. I don't know why, but it will be. Like, that's just how it is. Now, to kind of balance him out, his leak skills kind of suck. Because, again, Sagoro doesn't exist. I couldn't find a whole lot of links to, like, work with him. So Brainiacs, which is 15% attack and defense. Evil Autocrats is the Bobbity minion link for Spopovich, Yakan, and Pui Pui. However, when I googled what like this term meant, it meant someone who enjoys evil just for like the sake of it. So I was like, well, he's kind of like a little demanding guy, you know, he's having fun. We can do that. And plus, when's the next time you're going to see evil autocrats being used? Like, never. So it debuffs the enemy by 20% and gives you 2 key. More Than Meets the Eye, which is 10% attack and defense. GT, which is 2 key, 10% of stats. Gentleman, 2 key and 10% defense. Master of Magic, 15% attack and lowers the enemy defense by 10%. And Nightmare, which is 15% attack, and he only has 3 categories: GT bosses, Inhuman Deeds, and Final Trump Card. Even though I gave him these, Inhuman Deeds is because, you know, he toys with people's life, he's a cheater, he doesn't play by the rules, and that's also so that he'll fit on the 200% leader skill of the other unit. And Final Trump Card, because, you know, gambling and everything, I figured it would fit, and that way you could run him on a Final Trump Card team, but he would not get this massive buff, so you would be relying on him being a slot 3 dodger. Which, so, like, if you're running, like, the Blue Fusions double leader, even though I don't know why you would really do that, let's say you were, or you were running the GT, or the DBZ duo, because they lead Final Trump Card. Him being a floater, he has a 50% chance to dodge, and he's 50% offensive support with all of his key changing. So he'll be useful in Final Trump card, but not the perfect defensive unit as you see here. But that will be all for this time, guys. I have been the Sweeper27. I'm a variety Twitch streamer and an up-and-coming YouTuber trying to make it big in the world. I have a Twitter, a Twitch, a TikTok, the links to which can all be found in the description of this video. And while you're down there, don't forget to leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about these characters. Do you think they would be fun to use? Do you think they would be broken? If you had 1,000 stones, would you summon on this banner? Did I make them overpowered, underpowered? Do you think they would actually be able to save the shitty GT bosses team? Or do you think even with these buffs, it'll be doomed forever? I would love to hear everything you got to tell me down in the comment section below. But yeah, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because I am trying to hit 100 subscribers. So every interaction that happens, that means that YouTube is more likely to share it around. And the more likely it gets shared around, the more likely that more people will come and subscribe. And I think I'm a pretty cool guy. More custom Dokkan characters to come into the future. After this, I got to record several videos, like the Super Strike video for Vegeta, as well as to do the EZA for Launch and Oceana. So I got a busy day ahead of me. But that's going to be all for this time, guys. So as always, I have been the Sweeper27, and I am signing off.